Their third quarter emphasized Friday, a 16-point margin in this one. Minnesota held the Suns to 0 of 5 from beyond the arc. Again, Phoenix did make a bunch in the fourth, but by that point, it was way too late. In total, they've owned the third quarter by 34 points. Tim Legler is here. And Tim, as we were watching that fourth quarter, you said that there is a glaring difference between these two teams, and it's a long list. It's glaring in what ways to you?
So many different ways. And tonight, I thought, was their best game of the series, which is interesting because Phoenix had one shot to make this a series, and Minnesota hits them with everything they have on both ends. So how many different ways? First, the balance in scoring was what was impressive tonight, because this is something we don't talk about with the Mavericks. We talk about their defense all the time. Look at the number of guys that are making shots on this team. So their offense was humming at a really high level, and they're getting it from different places. Phoenix, they don't have that. They've got three guys that are pretty much going to have great nights for them to have a chance to win. That wasn't the case with Minnesota. They've got one superstar offensive player who's capable of doing all kinds of things athletically. And then they've got a bunch of dudes that are more than capable of staying in the lane, filling their role. Something else they had that stood out to me was their defense on their top three players. Like the number of guys they could put on. You heard Anthony Edwards give a shout-out to Nikhil, Alexander Walker, Jaden McDaniels. There's a reason for that. He's talking about their defense on Booker, Durant, Beal throughout this series. And then, by the way, once they pressure up Scott, what do? They funnel them to all that size. Rudy Gobert back there. Karl Anthony Towns back there. Naz Reid's back there. You can't have a roster full of more complete defensive players than the Minnesota Timberwolves have put together. Their rebounding advantage at the end of possessions, they almost doubled them up on the boards at one point in the fourth quarter on the night. That's demoralizing when you got one shot every time down the floor, and you can't keep them off the offensive glass. You add all that up, and this is just an absolute mismatch. This is probably the worst team Phoenix could have played because of the defensive prowess of this team and the way that Phoenix wants to have space to operate with their three elite offensive players. Minnesota was having none of it.
It's interesting, like Curry's already gone. LeBron's down 0-3. KD's down 0-3. I'd say it's like changing of the guard to some degree, but then Denver's over there like, we're still here. I mean, it's not, and I alluded to it with Ant, like, we're looking at Denver, Minnesota. That will be nasty. Got to get those one wins. But, I mean, it's pretty clear they're on a collision course
That
here.
guard changed last year. So it's only 1 year of that. So Jokic is still a young player. So, they're included in that. So Anthony Edwards, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, number one seed in the West, Luka Doncic. I mean, these are the guys that are coming for them, and it's almost a little bit sad to see this. Like Curry's already home. LeBron and Durant now on the brink of joining him pretty quickly.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's sad, but man, everything changes, and Ant looks like he's more than ready for this, and you can tell that there's an appetite for it, right? He's like, hey, I don't know what this is. I've been home. He didn't want to go home, and
no doubt about it.
It doesn't
chill everything in front of him. That's
what he wants to do.
Apt description I've ever heard a guy give about his own game.
I'm rarely speechless. So I'm like, all right. Credit to the Mavericks defense as they suffocate Leonard and George. They combined for just 16 points, the fewest in 26 playoff games together. George, 2 of 9 on contested attempts. You saw that great Gafford block, one of them. Clippers get held under 100 in back-to-back games for the first time since early November. Tim Legler is alongside. I was out of the country for a little bit, apparently, during the time that I was away, the touchscreen.
What's your budget on this show?
I don't know. It's okay, though. It's okay, because we don't always have to do touchscreen. No. We can just talk ball.
No.
And Luka's ability to control things, I mean, he's a maestro. What caught your eye tonight?
2 stretches in the game. One, they got separation, and then the second one, the second half, where they closed the game, basically. And Luka's a big part of that, obviously. It wasn't a great offensive game, really, for him as a shooter in general, but this is what I love about him. He freezes guys with his eyes. He looked hard and off to the corner. The entire time he's looking at P.J. Washington and instead throws this hook pass to Lively at exactly the right time so he can deliver a three-point play in the paint. I love this one, too. He takes the ball literally without any stopping off the floor directly into a lob pass at the one time that he could thread the needle with that to hit Lively again for a lob. Take a look at this outlet pass. Woo-woo! Flick of the wrist. The ball goes probably 65, 70 feet in the air.
You know what the key was? He deflected it, though, right? He deflected it, which started it.
Exactly right. He's just always a step ahead of everybody. And here, once again, he penetrates. He freezes Paul George on the weak side of the floor by looking at Lively for the lob, knowing if Paul George bites at all, then I've got a lob. If he decides to pinch, I've got a three-point shooter in the corner. And I said the three-point shooting ended the game. Kyrie hit a couple big ones where basically they blew it open in that fourth quarter. This wasn't a masterpiece offensively for either team. These are two pretty good defensive teams.
Yep.
Dallas has been elite for like the last 2 months defensively. But I thought there was some, just shoddy offense. So on that night, it's going to take a couple of stretches to really do your damage. I thought the big guys came to play tonight. Lucas setting them up in the first half, all those paint points. And then on the perimeter against that 2-3 zone that the Clippers put in, Dallas got enough shot making to basically thwart any sort of a comeback attempt.
We heard from Kawhi afterwards, wants to be on the floor for his team. And his impact through his career has been understood, right? You're talking about one of the greats of his time this time of year. What did you see from him tonight that makes you wonder how much we might see him in the next game?
Didn't like what I saw tonight. And we're sitting there watching him, and he didn't sound like he's too demoralized after the game. He sounds like he thinks it's going to be just fine. That's not really what it looked like tonight. There was no real impact, no force, sloppy with the basketball. That's not Kawhi. And then this part here, like jogging back in transition after the turnover when he has a chance to get back into the play and help. And I don't think that's because, Kawhi Leonard's lazy. I just think he doesn't feel it. Here again, the turnover, you see he never really makes any effort to get back into the play, and there's an opportunity to get back and do that. His shooting wasn't terrible, 4 for 7, but a couple of his misses were so flat. They had no chance to go in. The bottom line is this. He didn't put his imprint on this game at all, and that's a huge factor in considering who you think is going to win the series. Right. Now, I picked Dallas regardless, but I'm telling you, they got to get these games early before Kawhi gets rolling. Now I'm just wondering, is he going to get rolling? We're 3 games in, and, he just did not look good tonight. He had no bounce, no lift, and he didn't have sort of any imprint on either end of the floor. That's not what I expected out of Kawhi Leonard.